Trends and themes are starting to emerge as Ole Miss's fall camp rolls on.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. I am your host, Steven Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports and a former Ole Miss staff member as well. Today, we bring in Michael Katz, who was at practice yesterday, laid eyes on everything that has went on, and he's writing all kinds of great stuff at the Northeast Mississippi Daily Journal. We brought him in to recap what he saw at practice yesterday. It's a little late, but trust me, it will be worth it. Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen, and please give us a like, subscribe, and comment on your way out. It costs absolutely nothing and helps us out. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets if that first $5 bet wins. FanDuel. All right, so let's bring in Michael Katz. Michael, I listened to all of the press conference stuff. I saw the way that Lane Kiffin started talking about this football team at SEC Media Days. He continued it at the press conference. There's nothing really else you can take from it except Lane kind of likes this team.
Yeah, his eyes kind of light up when he talks about it, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He made a really good point yesterday that they have quote unquote 4 full-time starters returning, and that used to be a death sentence, back in the day of early 2000s when you lost a lot of your team. It was usually meant to rebuilding situation, but now you have new guys, but they're new guys who have played a lot of football at other places, so it's not nearly the same as rebuilding back in the day, and they've picked up all these talented pieces, and I think depth is a word that has come up a lot with this team. I know last year, obviously a lot of star power, and that team had depth as well. Maybe not on the surface level quite as much star power on this team, at least not yet with the names. But they are just so deep at so many spots. And, as we saw like late in the year, there's going to be a fourth quarter where you're going to need some of those guys who are maybe a little bit further down the depth chart, but are still really, really, really good players to step up if somebody gets hurt. And I feel like they're in a really good spot, and Lane seems to think so too.
Yeah, and in the back channels, talk about the depth at certain positions. Obviously, the top position for Ole Miss is receiver with 3 players on the Biletnikoff watch list. And we're talking about the second group of wide receivers, and Lane's talking about substituting a lot more, and that you're able to do that with this kind of depth. Is he actually going to do it, Michael?
Well, I mean, I think you kind of got to say it at least, right? To keep everybody happy. And that's one of the things I asked is, how do you get guys to buy into the room rather than, everybody wants numbers, right? Everybody wants to get drafted high, and numbers help that. But Lane did make a good point that, that the NFL, as we've seen in the draft, like, you don't have to have been a full-time starter for them to find you. Or even put up insane numbers. If you test well or whatever it is, or if you have a trait, they will find you. He brought up Jordan Watkins. Jordan Watkins wasn't starting at the start of last year, and he ended up having close to 1,000 yards. Granted, it feels like he had almost 1,000 yards against Arkansas alone. But he ended up having a really nice year and was a 4th-round pick. In a perfect world, like he said, they're going so fast, and they're able to just keep putting new bodies in and not have a drop off. And last year, as top heavy as they were, maybe there was a little bit of a drop off when Trey got hurt. Obviously, things changed a lot for that offense. And obviously Jordan Watkins had a great year, and Cayden Lee stepped up, and Juice Wells had his moments. But when you've got all of these guys who are 4-star-ish caliber talents, there's not a drop off when you put a new guy in. And I think, in a perfect world, they're going fast, and in the fourth quarter there's no drop off between, say, De'Zhaun Stribling if he's the number 1, and Deuce Alexander if he's in that next group, or whatever it looks like. There's just so much talent. And listen, as we know, there's a lot of footballs to go around. Lane likes to throw it around. I know he likes to run the ball too, but as we've seen in his, especially the last couple of years, you're going to get a lot of guys with a lot of targets and a lot of yards, and you just got to be ready for whenever that moment is. And I think he's proven, listen, they had 3 800-yard receivers last year. Year before it was 3 700-yard receivers. You don't necessarily have to be a full-time guy to get a ton of yards in this offense. So I think he seems really excited about the potential of having just so many different guys who can do it.
Yeah, you have the watch list guys of Stribling and Cayden Lee and Harrison Wallace III, who for some reason doesn't get talked about much in this fall camp. It's just he kind of gets lost in the wash because everybody immediately goes to that second group, like Isaiah Hartrop flashing all over fall camp. Traylon Ray coming back for a little bit from an injury, but flashing as well. And then you look at Deuce Alexander, and this is the weird thing that I like to compare this stuff. I love comps. I always love comps. Isaiah Hartrop, he has the potential to be a Dayton Wade type wide receiver, kind of a small school, come from nowhere, makes plays. Deuce Alexander, he looks like Jordan Watkins to me when he's out there running around. I haven't figured out Traylon Ray yet, but the second group, there's a comp that can be made and a good comp that can be made to these guys. And the reason I bring that up, we talk all in the offseason about the ascension of Joe Judge to quarterback coach. Austin Simmons being a different quarterback than Jackson Dart. Lane Kiffin saying their quarterback run is not going to necessarily be a part of this season. That tells me they're going to go more NFL. That tells me that they're going to use the processing ability that Austin Simmons has. And because of that, and if they go NFL, they might substitute a little more, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, and again, like you said, Austin and Jackson are very different, not just from a personality standpoint, but just from the way that they're playing styles. And again, we don't get to see a ton of practice, but you just see Austin in the pocket and the way that he navigates things. It's so crisp, it's sharp, it looks very NFL-y in the way that he's going through stuff. And I know Lane says that, Austin probably won't run as much as Jackson, which maybe there's some gamesmanship there. But again, I don't think he wants Austin lowering his shoulder on the middle linebacker the way Jackson did. I think that's just probably preservation, if anything else. But no, I do think this offense has a chance to look different than it has the last few years. And when you've got the personnel that they do in the depth, I think you can do that.
Yeah, and Trinidad Chambliss is a name that brought us. Austin Simmons is going to be the dude. He's going to be the unquestioned starter. But I think Chambliss has a chance to be this year's JJ Pegues, as weird as that sounds.
Yeah, no, I've been looking at the number 2 quarterback situation a little bit in practice with obviously Maddox and him. And Maddox, a younger guy, but he's got that dude can rip it. I mean, he has a heck of an arm. It's a pretty ball when it comes out. But Chambliss is a guy who I know it's a lower level, but he's won a national championship. He's put up numbers, and like you said, maybe if you're in those more predictable run situations, you don't have to put Austin in situations like that. You can put in the guy who ran for over 1,000 yards and almost 20 touchdowns last year. And
25, actually.
Was it 25?
Yeah.
I mean, the dude knows what he's doing when he has the ball in his hands. So, and 2, I think it's not just that he can run. Like you're going to have some throwing situations for him, I imagine, to keep defenses honest. So I think that's a good situation. Obviously, he and Austin are very different in the way that they throw the football and the way that they play. But I think having an experienced veteran, again, I know it's not experienced at the SEC level, but I think having a guy like that is really important. You have a guy that you don't have to cut the playbook down for, if that makes sense.
All right, when we come back, we will talk to Michael about the trench play, the offensive line, the defensive line, all of that coming up whenever we come back. But first, I do want to let you know Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're about the baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or the high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You already followed the action. Why not make it a little bit more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups. Ole Miss is currently a 37-point favorite over the Georgia State Panthers. I'm not exactly sure what to think about that yet, but it seems like the closer it gets to kickoff, you're leaning more towards that bet. The app always keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. Whether I'm placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet ride in the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm a part of the action. And if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if that first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, so let's bring Michael Katz back in as well. Listen, Delano Townsend's emergence on the offensive line, PJ Wilkins' emergence on the offensive line. I think Terez Davis, the transfer from Maryland, he's working as well. These are all guys that have a lot of eligibility, and they're flashing early on in camp.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the crazy things too is we haven't really even seen Patrick Kudas yet.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how crazy is that? When the most highly touted of them has really not been much of a factor yet. I said it last week. I think this offensive line has a chance to be really, really good.
Yeah, the first thing that popped into my head after talking to people and all of that is Delano Townsend and PJ Wilkins. They seem to really like physicality, and they have athleticism. This is my theory, Michael, what happened last year. I think Ole Miss got a little bit too, I don't know, in love with weight on offensive linemen, and they actually grew to the point where in a zone running scheme, there wasn't the athleticism to accomplish what needed to be done. I think this year, from all accounts, they're a little bit thinner. These guys are athletic, and they're going to try and win with physicality.
Yeah, no, I mean, just watching Townsend and Wilkins in their reps, they are guys who definitely they finish their blocks. They definitely they play through the whistle. Again, it's you never know how it's all going to come together, come SEC play or whatever. But I think just from at least like from our view, this line does seem to be a little bit more athletic. And without sacrificing physicality. I think that's the important thing is you would love all your offensive linemen to be supreme athletes, but you want them to still have that little bit of that nasty streak. And I think it's a tough balance. But at least as of now, it looks like they're a little bit closer to that this year than maybe last year. And
is the offensive line looking better? More the fact that the offensive line is better, or the fact that Walter Nolan and JJ Pegues isn't on the other side?
Yeah, I think that probably helps, right? When you're not having to defend Walter and Princely and JJ and Jared Ivey and all those guys, it probably makes everybody look a little bit better. So yeah, no, I'm sure Bryson Sanders is probably thanking his stars. He's not having to go against Walter Nolan every day this year, but. I'm sure that it helped in some way last year, but I'm sure there is something to be said for, maybe having a little bit more easier situations in practice.
Yeah, and the defensive line, so far this camp, there just hasn't been a lot of noise out of the negative or positive about the defensive line. Is that a good thing?
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of is right now, right? It's I think a couple days ago, I kind of took I realized that they're very big in spots. Cam Franklin is huge. That is a large dude, especially now that he's wearing a single digit. He definitely stands out.
He wears number 5, which was Robert Kimdichi's number, yes. And I halfway expect him to move down to the 3 technique and play inside.
So he looks the part. Xzavian Harris has always been huge. He somehow always seems to be getting taller. I don't know how it's possible, but every time I look out there, he looks a little bit taller. And so I know it's a different defensive line than last year, obviously, but I don't think that it's not a talented one. Like, they have really talented pieces. They're just not established pieces like they were before. And yeah, you're not always going to find a Walter Nolan, an All-American or a Princely Monmielen, a high draft pick and all SEC player. But that's not to say that one of these guys might not turn into one, and you still have, the ultimate chess piece in Suntarine Perkins, who again somehow seems to be forgotten about in a lot of the national conversation. But again, 10.5 sacks last year, and now that he's really kind of the face of the defense, I think they're going to put him in more situations to be successful now that he is the lead pass rusher.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you about that, because this is year 3 under Pete Golding. This is year 3 with Suntarine Perkins. This is going to be the absolute apex of what they can do together, or what they should be able to do together. And that's probably the reason in fall camp you're not hearing from Suntarine Perkins, because honestly, the stuff that they're not allowed to talk about and they tell the media not to pay attention to in the camp, they're probably doing some of that stuff, moving him around, and the media just can't talk about it.
No, I mean, it's for a superstar, he has been pretty low key over these first few weeks. And but I mean, again, he is a guy that when he came to Ole Miss, Pete Golding kind of needed Suntarine Perkins, and that was a relationship that it's a big reason why Suntarine came to Ole Miss, and he's really flourished and started to blossom. And it feels like if things go right, I think it's hard to predict sack numbers, just because sometimes you get to the quarterback and you don't quite finish, or all those things. But I think that if we look this year in the way that he's used, I think his pressure numbers are going to be really, really good regardless. And I think they're going to use him in ways that maybe just don't limit him to that edge role. I think he's just so athletic that you got to let your best players do what they do. And in year 3, and now that he knows his playbook, now that he really is the guy, or one of the guys, you just got to let it rip with him.
Yeah, and it's weird to me, and I've been aggravated about this for months in the offseason, but the leading sack man in the Southeastern Conference, this isn't the Mid-America Conference we're talking about. This is the leading returning sack man in the Southeastern Conference, double-digit sacks. Even within the conference, they list 4 and 5 defensive ends above it.
I mean, I'm just surprised Arch Manning wasn't listed as the top edge rusher. But seriously, no. But in all seriousness, it is pretty crazy that a guy who impacted games the way that he does, and who has the resume that he already does. But it's the Cayden Lee saga, right? A guy who has a ton of production, but you've got high-profile transfers who kind of get on people's minds, and guys at bigger programs who people fall in love with. But I think at the end of the day, Perkins is going to be a guy that I think people are going to have to take notice of if they haven't already.
Okay, when we come back, we will talk to Michael about the position that is on every. All right, Michael. The linebackers are interesting, and that's not the position that's on everybody's mind, but we didn't talk about the linebacker. TJ Dottery looks like he is pretty entrenched in the middle of that defense. Tahj Chambers, he's on up there as well. He flashed in front of the media. I always tell people on my show, Lane only puts people out there that's doing the right things. So if they show up for press conferences, pay attention to that player. He showed up for a press conference over Andrew Jones and Jaden Yates, the other 2 linebackers. And I think TJ Banks is probably making a little bit of a run towards some playing time this year.
Yeah, no, it is interesting you bring up Tahj Chambers, because I feel like he kind of, at least when the class was announced several months ago, he was kind of the forgotten man because, Greg Jones Andrew Jones was the SWAC player of the year and all these things. And Jaden Yates was like top 10 nationally in tackles last year at Marshall. And then you've got Tahj Chambers, who's an FCS guy and doesn't have quite the resume as those guys. But again, he got in front of us, and he did it in the spring too. He's just really impressive to talk to. And he's a guy that, I think now that he is in a major like strength training program and on an SEC diet, he's gained like 20 pounds. He looks bigger, stronger, faster. I mean, when you look at him out there, he doesn't look out of place, and he's getting a lot of important reps right now. I think again, I know they're only going to show us certain things, but like you said, they're not going to throw somebody up in front of the media that isn't going to probably at least do something to impress us. I think he's been a pleasant surprise for a group that, like, we know Dottery. We know that he's a really good player. He's been a really good player for a while now. And, Perkins, if you want to consider him a linebacker, you can kind of put him all over the place. But I think that Chambers has a chance to be a really nice player. And again, I'm always looking at like guys who, if they lose a tough game, who's going to be a guy who's going to come talk to us? He feels like one of those guys, right? That is just like very mature, level-headed, and is going to be able to give the right answers when times are tough.
Yeah, and people don't need to underestimate the fact that TJ Dottery wears the green dot. He wears the green dot because Pete Golding trusts him, because he's a level-headed. He has the defense completely down, and he's a great communicator. If you have a second one of those at linebacker, the defense has a chance to be pretty good. I did mention in the offseason that if Xzavian Harris and either Jam Banks or William Eccles, whoever wins that spot, if they can both demand double teams, then Andrew Jones, that what he does becomes effective. If the linebackers have to play linebacker and worrying about all the traffic that's in front of them, it would be somebody like Yates or Tahj Chambers.
Yeah, no, but again, it's good to have options depending on what ends up transpiring or on a play-to-play basis. I think it's good to have options for sure.
All right, so the position that's on everybody's mind.
Punter and kicker.
Yes. Lucas Carnero. Yes. No, the defensive back room that everybody's asking me questions about online. They all want to know what's going on. And I'm like, man, I'm in Florida. I'll ask Michael, but we'll see what's up. But you have a situation to where Nick Cole, he's running out there. He's getting a lot of great reps. Jalen Braxton finally is full go. That's actually a low-key, very, very big move for this defense, and they hope that he could likely win that job. But you don't hear that much. The name that I don't hear Sage Ryan that much. I do not hear Wyatt Williams that much. Tell me about the safety positions. Is Ole Miss going to be okay there?
Yeah, we actually spoke with Capena Gashekin yesterday, who again is he's an impressive kid to talk to. Again, Lane's not going to throw out guys who are going to say the wrong thing, but he's an experienced player. A lot of really good tape at Washington State, and Lane made a really interesting comparison. He said that he's sort of like in that Trey Washington mold in like the best possible way, of a guy who is really, really smart, is always going to be in the right place. It can sort of be a field general of sorts. And that's what he compared Gashekin to. And I thought that was really interesting because, again, I know Trey Washington never got the pub, but he was a guy who played forever and was a really good player for a long time. And I think he's on the Colts roster now. He'll have a professional future in some regard. So, but yeah, no, it is interesting. There hasn't been a ton of guys, the Sage Ryan, I think we all expected was going to be that's a no-brainer. And I think he ends up kind of being a no-brainer, but you haven't heard a lot from him, a lot from the safeties. And I think that's just, again, maybe there's a little gamesmanship there in terms of showing us who they want us to see lining up in certain spots right now. But Yeah, the only one I think we've really talked to. I mean, I talked to Sage Ryan at media days, and he's delightful. He's a really cool kid. But yeah, Gashekin was in front of us at the podium yesterday, which I think probably bodes well for him in terms of how they see him.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt he's going to play.
Yeah.
But you look at Gashekin. Is there any concern with length with him playing on the back end of that defense? I think that's the one concern that people have about him is the length thing. If he has to go up against somebody like Caleb Odom, he's not going to win that very often, is he?
No, and that's one of the things I noticed yesterday when he came up to the podium. I was like, ooh, he's a little smaller than I remember. And I think he might have been wearing pads still. I don't remember. But I was like, wow, he's kind of just seems like a normal sized dude as opposed to you see these oversized safeties in the NFL or even in the SEC. He's not one of those. But I think that, again, they've brought in a lot of versatile bodies at those spots that you're in a perfect world. Pete Golding's not going to put him in a situation where he's going to have to do that, right? You're going to have other guys who maybe don't do certain things well that Capena does, but that can maybe match up better in certain spots than he can. So again, I think it goes back to that depth of, is it as top heavy all around the roster as last year? I don't know. I think that's probably unfair with how successful that roster was last year, but I think you have a lot of versatility that maybe you didn't have last year at pretty much every spot.
Yeah, I talked with Brett Ciancia from Pick Six Previews, and I'm going to talk with Phil Steele a little bit later on this afternoon. But my question for him will be, everybody says that Ole Miss is going to take a step back, and everybody wants to think that they've taken a step back from a 9-3 record. They're taking a step back from there. No, that was a 12-0 roster. Whenever you look at the metrics around that was a 12-0 roster. They lost one-score games on the road at LSU and Florida in that Kentucky game we don't even need to talk about. But the step back, literally, this could be a 10-2 team, and that's a step back, even though the record is going to be a little bit better, potentially.
Yeah, no, I think it's I think that like you said, the record didn't necessarily portray how good that team was last year. Again, the number 2 scoring defense in the country and the number 3 scoring offense in the country, and end up losing 3 games by 13 points. It's just sometimes it just doesn't fall your way or break your way. That team the year before, it seems like everything went their way late in games in the 2023 season. It was not that way in 2024. Maybe it turns that way in 2025. So yeah, I mean, I think there's a chance that this is a 9-3 team again in the regular season. It doesn't mean it's better than last year's team was. I think it would be really hard for last year to be better than last year's team. That was a historically great team last year, metrics wise, personnel wise, everything. So I think it depends how you define taking a step back. Is it wins? Is it All-Americans? Is it draft picks? I mean, what does that look like? Is it points per game going down? Whatever that is. But I do think that, again, and I know it's a dangerous gambit to play the schedule game. The schedule looked good last year too, and they had a couple rough ones, but the schedule looks good again this year. Like we talked about before the show started, they only leave Mississippi 3 times. I think that there's an opportunity for, is this team going to be as quote unquote good as last year's team? It'd be really hard to be as high quality and as superstar laden as last year's team. But that doesn't mean that when you look at the end of the year, the record's going to be any different.
All right. Tell everybody what you have going on at the Northeast Mississippi Daily Journal, Michael.
A lot of wide receiver stuff. Lane loves that wide receiver room. I feel like I'm always writing about wide receivers these days because they just keep throwing new ones in front of us to talk to. We talked to Deuce Alexander yesterday. Really interesting kid. Again, he's at Wake Forest, and they didn't give him the ball a ton there. But Lane really liked what he saw, and Deuce admitted that during last year's 40-7, whatever that Ole Miss Wake Forest game was last year, he was looking at the scoreboard and he liked what he saw from Ole Miss's offense because numbers just kept changing. So I thought that was really interesting. But, you know, like we talked about at the beginning of the show, when Lane says – Lane's not the guy to throw flowery stuff around. But he said this is the deepest wide receiver room they've had. And that's pretty impressive when you look at the names and the rooms and the different types of receivers they've had. You know, is a Trey Harris All-American or Elijah Moore All-American gonna come out of this room? Who knows? I think it's possible someone does. But when Lane says that this is the deepest room he's had, that carries a lot of weight, at least with me. So a lot of the wide receiver stuff. We'll be getting into the nitty-gritty of the offensive line coming up soon. I'm hoping that we get to talk to Bryson Sanders as a group sometime soon, because I would love to pick his brain as one of the few returners, or a guy who's been in the program for a bit, shall we say, same with Diego Pounds. But yeah, just you know, we're a little over 3 weeks out from the first game somehow. So now we're starting to, you know, I feel like we don't still know a ton about this team, but I think we're getting there.
Yeah, sounds pretty good. Thank you very much for coming on the show, and we'll talk to you next week, bud.
Appreciate you.
All right. Thank you for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves on offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we're the front door of Ole Miss. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. It helps the show, and it is completely free. Your support means the world to us. For your second listen, check out the Portal Show. Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. Be the most informed fan on the rapid changes around college football's landscape. Find the Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Hotty toddy. And remember, analytics is just the old English word that means bad football. We'll see you later.